Robin to do Take Me Out to the Ball Game for the Hakafah song. We decided not to. To introduce our Torah reading this morning, it's my honor to call upon our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Eddie Schecter.
I used to let everybody fall asleep. We used to say that if you wanted a seat in the last row in our synagogue, you had to come early. The great sage Hillel said that God is going to ask us one question. Did you enjoy all there was to enjoy in my creation? Let's think about that, because I'm really enjoying this. So in this year, 5,786, this Jewish year, I will be turning 80 years old, and I will begin my 54th year as some kind of rabbi in this congregation. And that means, to give you a vision, my first bar mitzvahs will be turning 67 years old. And some of them are still in touch with me. If you want to see their photos, it's on the back wall downstairs in the lobby. But there were a number of those early years. And such a pleasure for me to have Rabbi Reeser, Cantor Robin. We never said Cantor Joseph, always Cantor Robin. And then it's Daniel. But to be able to see so much that's new and vibrant in the congregation gives me a great deal of joy. So yes, I can answer, I'm enjoying almost everything in this creation, except I did leave a thing of Tylenol here in the bima. So Daniel read my father's name last night. My father, Alav Shalom, should rest in peace, died on Rosh Hashanah in between the evening and the morning services in 1999. It happened to be in 1999 that Rosh Hashanah was also September 11th, 9/11. 2 years later, I was flying down on that date to visit my mother on his second yahrzeit, and I flew by the towers 15 minutes before the attack and was able to get back here just before that Rosh Hashanah. This past Friday night, as I was live streaming services, which you now can do as Rabbi Emeritus, you know. People said I wasn't here last night. Well, I was on live stream. But this past Friday night, Daniel and Robin had a wonderful Friday night service, the Bar Bat Mitzvah class, which is now the B Mitzvah class, I've learned the new language. All the kids in the 7th grade in the Bar Bat Mitzvah class came up here to help conduct the service. You know, in T-shirts and shorts and sneakers, feeling that they were right at home. And it made me think back to when I was 12 years old, to the year I was in a Bar Mitzvah class. And my father actually, having come over from Europe just after World War I, Orthodox upbringing, he said, Eddie, you have to go to shul every Shabbos with me. And I was ranting and raving. I said I didn't know that I was getting into all that. Temple Beth El in Cedarhurst, Long Island, a conservative synagogue, and he really dragged me there. And I walk into the synagogue and I see the rabbi. I didn't know his name, It was Rabbi Edward T. Sandrell. But I took one look at what he was doing. He was like this, pointing to a stained glass window. I took one look, and I knew then that I wanted to be a rabbi. And I never turned back. One other event happened that year that really stands out for me, is that I was visiting my father's office in New York City on Fifth Avenue, and there was a bookstore that recently opened, Scribner's on Fifth Avenue. Some of you will remember Scribner's. Beautiful. You walked in, it was like a library. And I wander around and I walk upstairs, and there are the first finely bound paperbacks. And I look on the shelf and I see a black and white striped paperback with the title Night by Elie Wiesel. The very first edition. And I bought it. And I went home and I spent the whole night reading it, and I knew that I would follow him for the rest of my life, which I did. And I hope that I brought him in his writings, not just his writings on the Holocaust, but he wrote 50 books. Some of you maybe have seen the documentary that just came out about his life, Soul on Fire. And just a few weeks ago, I saw on Facebook that there's an Elie Wiesel stamp right now, a federal postage stamp. And so I was thinking to myself, after 54 years, there's really going to be nothing new in my years as rabbi or rabbi emeritus. And then I was in town. I was getting a gas at Bob's service station, Tom Schnibbe. I was getting a haircut at Side Street from Joe. And I went to the post office to get the stamp. This is a few weeks ago. And a woman is there. Some of you might know Maria, the postmaster, one of them here in Hastings. And I didn't know her name then. And I said, have you got the Elie Wiesel stamp? And she says, who? She said, can you spell that for me? And I spell it. And she starts looking up on her device. And she says, oh my, he was a Holocaust survivor. He was in a concentration camp. And he won the Nobel Prize. And he wrote this book, Night. I have to get a copy of that book. I said, no, you don't, Maria. I said, I'm going to bring you one tomorrow. And I went home, and the next day, I brought her that book. The stamp was not coming out till September 17th. I still don't have one, but she is going to be in touch with me. She wants to get it for me. And she says she's been reading the book in the post office, and that a father and daughter came into the post office, and the daughter said, I read that book, and it was Night. And so there is something new under the sun. 1959, I take Night off the shelf, and now, so many years later, I take Night and I give it to a new student of Elie Wiesel. Many of you know how I revered him. My saying a story when I usually speak comes from Elie Wiesel, who took it from the Midrash. I followed him all these years, all of the lectures at the 92nd Street Y. I was able, when my older son was born, to name him Eli in the Sephardic tradition and to tell Elie Wiesel. And I was able to actually sit with his late wife, Marion, because I had been there so frequently. And their son is named Eli, Elisha. And I was able, as teenagers, to introduce my Elisha to Elie Wiesel's Elisha. Such a precious and vital part of my life, and I hope of the life of the congregation. So now, to this Torah portion, what did Elie Wiesel teach me? And this, to me, is one of the most important interpretations of this Torah portion. God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son, beyond imagination. But Elie Wiesel quotes one of the Hasidic Rebbes, Menachem Mendel of Kutsk, the Kutzker Rebbe. And the Kutzker Rebbe says, no, don't begin with, and God commanded Abraham to take Isaac. The first few words, you'll see it in your Machzor, Vayehi achar hadvarim ha'eleh, that it is after these things, Elohim nisa et Avraham, that God decided to test Abraham. This is a test. We know it's a test. Abraham doesn't. After these things, God decided to test Abraham. What are these things? In the chapter before, Sarah tells Abraham to oust Hagar and Ishmael. To oust Sarah's concubine and son, this, the older son of Abraham. And it says right in the Torah, Vayiraha davar ma'od b'yeinei Avraham. This was an evil thing in the eyes of Abram. He turns to God, and God says, do whatever your wife says. And Abraham does it. He ousts Hagar and Ishmael. And he wasn't supposed to. According to the Kutzker, he was supposed to say no to God. When something is evil, we have to say no. And so the beginning verse, and so after these things is the ousting of Ishmael, the father of the Muslim people. God decides to test Abraham and says, okay, if you won't say no, when I wanted you to say no to Ishmael, now let's see what you do when you are told to sacrifice Isaac. And the knife is in the air, and to the Kutzker Rebbe interpreted by Elie Wiesel, the knife is in the air, and it's not a messenger that comes. It's a voice from within the Kutzker Rebbe, the real voice of God, that tells Abram not to do it. There are times in the Jewish tradition when we are supposed to say no to God. Good Yontif.